financial services talent pipeline shows a disturbing lack of representation of people of color, which deteriorates as we reach senior level positions. With us today is Chris Ortega, a well-known finance influencer with thousands of followers on his social media channels, courageously speaking about the DEI issue in finance and FP&A. Hello, Chris. So, a study by McKinsey and Leanin in 2021 showed that only 9% of C-suite positions in finance and FP&A are held by men of color, and well, guess what? 4% by women of color, whether they're Black, Latino, or Asian. What do you think of these grim numbers? And perhaps a why is crucial here to ask as well.
I know from my vantage point and my personal experience, being in high growth entrepreneurial SaaS organizations, being in the technology high growth space, the further that I moved up, there's very, very few minority, diversity, equity, or inclusion at the leadership level. My mom is African American and Caucasian, and my father is Latino and Italian. So I come from a very diverse background in terms of my representation. And I think that's really, really important for organizations as well as practitioners in accounting, finance, FP&A to show like, hey, you can come from these diverse backgrounds, these different communities, these different outlooks, and still have that representation across the board, whether that's staff levels all the way up to the C-suite CFO levels inside of organizations.
This is a personal question, Chris. On your road to your personal success, you've faced ordeals like every other man or woman who wants to make it in the FP&A world, but your circumstances were, well, a little different. So looking back, would you mind sharing with us some of the situations you had to deal with?
Really resounding points in my life where I realized that the road I was going down was going to be difficult. When I was at Indiana University, the top probably 5 business schools in the nation in accounting, finance, and accounting and finance, I was always in those classes, the minority. Like if you look at a class of like 100 people, there were maybe 5 of us that were minorities, right? And I knew then is always how it started, because when it like have like group projects, right, where it's like you have your group project and like everybody gets to pick their team. I remember I used to always just sit back and I never would say anything. I would just let it play out and let the kind of just situation play out. And it was always like I was like the last person, and like I would be with this group unless I knew somebody.
Wow, I just cannot believe that this is an experience that young adults still have to deal with in academic institutions. Basically, what you're saying is that you always felt like you had to prove yourself, you were in constant doubt of your own capabilities.
It was always that validation to say like I had to prove it. And it started in college. And then when I moved into my professional career, it was the same way. I mean, it was, you see it when I started off at Ernst & Young. I was always like, I remember in the Indianapolis office, there was only probably about 5 or 6 minority people inside of the entire audit practice.
And later on, after college, did you experience any exclusion or even microaggressions from your finance leaders or your colleagues?
I mean, I've had the whole spectrum of it. I'm in leadership in SaaS, and we were going through like an investment round, and we brought in some bankers from New York. And I was the finance leader, like leading the entire like region, and I was preparing the meeting before it like started with the bankers. And I'm setting things down in the conference room, and I'm, making sure everything's good. The bankers come in, and the lead banker was like, hey, can you give me some coffee? And we need some this, and have the temperature lower, like all these different things. And he just come in just like immediately just thinking like, okay, this person is like the office person or setting it up, not knowing that I'm going to be part of this presentation and representing the company as the finance leader that you need to win over. And I remember that moment so much, Guy, because I played along with it, and I said, okay, like I'll make sure you get, is there anything else that you need? Do you guys need pens? And he was like, no, we're fine. And he brushed me off and like waved me off. Then the meeting started. Hey, I'm the CEO. This is what I do. This is our finance leader, Chris Ortega, and he's awesome. And he's leading this whole thing. And he subtly says, he's the guy you got to win over. The look on this banker's face was like, he was like, oh my goodness, like what did I do? Like I treated this person so bad. And I assumed that he was just a help and like just the person to make sure we had coffee and tea and notepads and like the Wi-Fi codes and stuff.
Well, I unfortunately have to say this, but I'm positively sure there are more people experiencing similar racist aggressions like yourself. But from your experience, Chris, what reinforcing tips can you hand out to all those working in FP&A and have an ethnic background, and they want to apply for leading roles in finance? They want to advance in their career, but are feeling scared or even a bit concerned.
Love this question. And number one thing is, I think never, ever compromise your integrity or who you are for like stand on what you, I call it standing on your truth. The second thing is like build a great network of people. Like to me, like that's one thing I love about LinkedIn and these other avenues of communication is you have the ability to connect with so many different people across the globe, right? And one mentor has always told me, he says, Chris, your network determines your net worth. I think the third thing is continue to find those opportunities to grow and develop, and just know like there's never going to be an organization, there's never going to be a manager, there's never going to be a team that cares more about your career more than you. Like be the master, be the CEO, be the CFO of your own career.
Chris Ortega, I wish you'd never had to experience such poisonous ignorance. Thank you. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much for your time. And I hope everybody listening, I hope your families are safe and well, and you continue to crush the rest of 2022.